All right, Shalom, family. Welcome back to the Kingdom of Israel. And we're going to continue with Prophecy 2026. Today is what is righteousness? We're going to maintain the subject matter of righteousness and giving clarity to what that means, what it stands for. As usual, you all, we're not here to deal with your ideas of religion. Oh, wow. Yep. So we're not here to deal with your ideas of religion, that be Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism. We're going to deal with the biblical writings as it pertains to the heritage of the people. And also, in most instances, you're looking at this from the standpoint of what's literal, right? So I'm just looking to give deeper meaning to what's written. For example, it's understanding there's layers to this. And depending on where you are is, where you get a different understanding, right? But the literal sense for too long, it has misguided so many individuals. So we want to try and focus on what this mystery is, what this hidden meaning, is talking about. So we also try to steer away from the semantics. Thank you all for coming into the live. Share the live, repost the live. The semantics, like as you've heard me say before, terminology such as Jesus, Lord, God. These are things that trip people up in their mind because we can only see them one way. But if you go to the context within a hidden meaning, then you'll come to see that these things have layers. When you talk about a Jesus, when you talk about a Lord, a God, and for that it can give a more purposed sense of how these things become functional. All right, so what is righteousness? That's what we're going to lean into today. And still, as I said before, right, our focus at this point is not to deal with the image of any man or individual, but for us to understand what righteousness is, that we would even be suitable. Because within the context of different religious applications, the focus is on a Yahweh. The focus is on a Jesus. Not understanding you first must be able to perform within the sense of what righteousness is to even be associated with a Jesus and or a Yahweh. So the semantics also go into when you say things, you have some, as I said before, they'll say, oh, there's no J. In the Hebrew language, that's Greek. That's not even his name. Who cares? We're not dealing with that. We're dealing with the fact, do you understand what righteousness is? Do you understand what's being asked of you that you can perform to the measure that when the Lord returns, you're seen suitable to stand on the same line or within the same ranks? All right. So let's jump right off into it. What is righteousness? Thank you all for coming, into the live. Share the live, repost the live. We're going to start off with John 10 and number 1. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that enter not by the door into the sheepfold, but climb up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. So, parable, allegory, this is what we're talking about. He said, he that climb, or he that enter not by the door. So here, within Christ, he's allowing himself to be seen as the door. And that door is righteousness, because you can't enter in except that you carry within you the understanding of righteousness that you can do it. He said, that's how you enter into the sheepfold. He said, but those who come in other ways, like thinking you can bypass it or you have some other way to deal with it and you want to get into the sheepfold, he said, you're a robber, you're a thief. And this is what we're wrestling with right now today. As folks are not understanding the need to put the emphasis on themselves before they're putting the emphasis on something outside of themselves. Jeremiah 23:1, he says, woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture. This is what we're looking at. You destroy the sheep of the pasture when you're not allowing others to understand what are the elements of righteousness. They're scattered, at this point, because they're off doing other things, thinking they're associated with an understanding of eternal life, and they're being misguided. He says, woe to the pastors. Woe to the people that are teaching outside of what righteousness is, not even allowing themselves to meticulously and or consistently study these elements of righteousness. And then at that point, what you're saying is you're looking at the principles, you're looking at the commandments, the nuances that are associated with these things, that you can fortify yourself with this right understanding. Number 2, he says, therefore, thus saith the Lord God of Israel against the pastors that feed my people. Feed the people what? People are being fed either wickedness or righteousness. And today we can truly see people are being fed a sour meal, a polluted meal of unrighteousness. This is the understanding that's permeated throughout the world. I mean, overwhelmingly, right? He said, against the pastors that feed my people. He said, ye have scattered my flock. Because people are out here not understanding what is righteousness, that they can be associated with higher principles, associated with what we understand to be a Lord or a God. He said, and driven them away and have not visited them. Like, folks don't care. If they can get some money out of it, then, that suits them just fine. He said, I will visit you. He says, I will visit upon you the evil of your doings, saith the Lord. So when you talk about righteousness, there's a standard within righteousness that says those who participate within corruption, they will be judged. That's something you cannot get away from. John 10:2, he said, but he that enter in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. If you enter in by the door, you're the shepherd of the sheep. This goes to what's being fed to the sheep. If you come in through the standards of righteousness, then you're a shepherd of the sheep. It speaks of it two ways. For those that will be the shepherds and for those that are the sheep, they both have to come through the understanding of righteousness, right? And for those of you that, feel some way as if I'm trying to exclude Christ, no, I'm not. Let's just be clear about that. The intent in Christ being the anointed one, not trying to exclude Christ, because ultimately you have to become anointed even through a Christ in order to come in to the understanding of righteousness. And you'll see as I'm going further down, it's expressed. Righteousness will find you. Like, we're out here thinking we can do this, we can do that. It's explaining righteousness will find you and will reveal itself to you. The thing is, are you in a position to receive it and to understand it? Oh, but I'm going to let the words speak. Okay. He says, Jeremiah 23:4. He says, and I will set up shepherds over them that will feed them. Again, this is where we're talking about that righteousness. That's what's going to be fed. And I'm like a broken record, at this point, explaining righteousness. As I've said, we do not wrestle with flesh and blood. We're in conflict with understanding what these principles are. That's the thing that have a number of us out here confused. And we're seeing within the writings, it's saying those that are being intentionally starved, right? They have to find their position to be able to understand what righteousness is. But then those who are more specifically the ones that are implementing this corruption, they're going to get dealt with severely. They're not going to escape this. Okay. He said, and I will set up shepherds over them, which shall feed them, and they shall fear no more, nor be dismayed, neither shall they be lacking, saith the Lord. So when it comes to righteousness, it's already written that when we stand within these principles, we're not going to be lacking. Like today, we're lacking, even though some would want to say, oh, I don't lack for nothing. Well, that's not true. The entire world is lacking right now. But when the true sense of what the principles within righteousness are functional within the entire scope of the earth, there will be no lacking. There will be no famine. All of this, what we go through today, is because we refuse to submit ourselves unto righteousness. So there has to be an overhaul. There has to be a purge. Not because I say so or because I want this to take place, but in understanding what's written and how the instrument of righteousness is going to come through and sweep this world, this earth. It's just to be understood. Okay. Matthew 24 and 21. He says, for then shall great tribulation, and this is what we're talking about, right? Because we've succumb to the corruption and the wickedness of this world. We're witnessing tribulation, but it's telling us there's even more of it to come. Great tribulation. We think we've seen something thus far. It's telling us to prepare. And then you have those that say, oh, you're up here, gloom and doom. It's like, no, just telling you, get ready. Get ready. Prepare your mind that you can survive what's going to happen. It's amazing. If a storm is coming, you do what you can within your quarters to take shelter, as they say. So here, this is another type of storm that's coming, and you're not going to do anything to take shelter. That's insane. He says, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time. It says, no, nor ever shall be. So just saying, we need to prepare ourselves. He says, and except those days should be shortened. And this is where it gets to the point that if righteousness don't come in sweeping, it's saying this corruption, it would just continue to spread. And it would just, continue to fester and just eat up everything until there's like nothing else to be eaten. It would just destroy life. But righteousness is not going to allow that to happen. It's like it must be put to an end. He says, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. And this is what I'm saying. This corruption, this way of life that we're witnessing in this day and time, it's only meant to destroy. They can't bring peace, although they promise peace. But because of the principles they live by, or the lack of principles they live by, they can only do harm. He says, there should no flesh be saved. He said, but for the elect's sake, those that are selected to turn this thing around and be the ushers within righteousness to help guide the earth and keep it on its proper course. Like, this ain't something magical that has to take place. I mean, it's like you have those that are guiding the earth within the corruption. So there are those who are considered the elect, who will be the ones to rule the world in righteousness. He says, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Talking about the days of the wicked. Their days are being shortened. But we have to understand the prophecy to even know what it looks like with respect to the ushering in of righteousness, because some of you are just oblivious. Jeremiah 23:5, he says, behold, the day come, saith the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch. A king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. How is this judgment and justice in the earth going to take place, except that we understand and we accept that it's righteousness? That's the judgment and justice that's going to take place. And there's a host of individuals that will be over making certain that these things are enforced. I could go more, into the point of the righteous branch. It's like you have different branches within what you call your government, because that's all this is. It's another body of government that's coming in to rule and or run things on earth. It's just that simple. And their standards are going to be those standards within the commandments, within the law. So here, Jeremiah 23:5, he says, behold, the day come. Oh, I'm sorry. John 10 and number 6. John 10 and number 6. He said, this parable spake Jesus unto them, but they understood not what things they were which he spake unto them. So this is like for a number of things that we're talking about and or dealing with today, talking about the mystery, talking about parable. A number of you don't get it, right? You don't get it because it's not coming from a literal sense or something that you're familiar with hearing. Well, you need to understand the things that you have grown accustomed to hearing. They've been so bothered within the way of corruption and or leading people astray, as he say, those pastors that feed my people. The entire world has been misguided, misled. Am I trying to say that I had not been misled? No, I'm not trying to say that. I know that I had been misled. In fact, that was the day and point that I put my foot down and said, then I have to scrutinize everything to then come to understand where is truth, that I may speak in representation of that truth. So to this point, I do not allow for myself to be misled because I'm not listening with respect to what's being said within the world and then trying to repeat that. I'm allowing a thing within righteousness to be revealed that I can then explain it. And some of you have an issue with it because you're not familiar. But just because you're not familiar, it doesn't mean that it isn't what it is. It just means you need to give yourself an opportunity to understand. Romans 11:26, he says, and so all Israel shall be saved. And we're not talking about Netanyahu and those that are in what you call the Middle East and their state of Israel. None of that. None of that is real. All of them, those people are imposters. They have nothing to do with righteousness. They are a part of the problem. He says, all of Israel shall be saved, as it is written. He said, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. Again, from the standpoint of looking at the deeper sense of what this is talking about, it's saying there's a particular people that will be selected for governing the world appropriately. Why do you have a problem with that? Looking at the particular people that have been selected to rule the world within the standards of corruption and or wickedness and what they're doing to it right now. And you're just in the flow and in the stream of it and, it's cool, it's okay. You don't see everybody ruling right now. No, there's a particular people that rule the world right now. They're doing a horrible job at it. But they are a people. And although they've hijacked several different heritages out there, and they try to go by different names, such as they may call themselves a Jew. But that's what they do. They take what they need in order to then usurp whatever resource or whatever it is they feel they need. That's what they do. They lie, they cheat, they steal. We see it, we know it to be true. So here, there's a particular people who have been tainted by that corruption, but they're going to be cleaned up. And righteousness is that thing that's going to clean them up. These standards, these principles. Jeremiah 23:6, he says, in his days, Judah shall be saved. Now, right now, it's hard for a lot of people to even understand who and or what a Judah is. We don't use terminology like that much anymore. There are those of us who come to understand that we are, of the chosen people. We are Israel. We are Judah, right? But on a larger scale, it's not something that's understood because the gathering has not taken place just yet. So it's just a whole lot of chatter about who is, what ain't. And, it's unnecessary because our focus should be on maintaining the tenets of righteousness, that we can protect ourselves when the wave of fury comes through to purge the earth. Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. And this is his name whereby he shall be called, the Lord our righteous. So the Lord our righteous is within understanding that all the tenets of this Judah and this Israel will stand 10 toes down on what righteousness is. You may not understand what it is today, but we will need to bring ourselves to understand day by day, little by little, what this is. And it's a job trying to understand it because they've removed it from out of the earth. They've removed the understanding of it. They do not deal with the conversation of righteousness within your news media, within your educational systems, within these world institutions. You get penalized for dealing with concepts of righteousness. You get rewarded for the things within corruption that you are able to facilitate. Romans 11:27, he says, for this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. Hebrews 8:8, he says, for finding fault with them, he say, behold, the day come, saith the Lord, when I shall make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. So as a people, we're out here, we're flawed. We know it. But some of us, we don't like it. So we have to position ourselves to understand those things that are required of us, that we can be a part of this new covenant. And just because you confess with your mouth that Jesus is your Savior, that doesn't make you a part of this covenant. Just because you can say Yahweh, Yahuwah, that doesn't make you a part of this covenant. Your interest should be on understanding what's required, what thing you must do in order to be associated with it. Because in the world, they've tried to make a number of you feel that there's really nothing you need to do, that things are just going as they need to go, and it's going to be okay. And we're going to see, even within these writings, where it tells us to be mindful of that thing, to understand that this is what they are doing, is they're continuing to distract you and to keep you from understanding what the principle is. He said, behold, the day comes, saith the Lord, I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Jeremiah 23:9. He says, mine heart within me is broken because of the prophets. And this is where it's seen all of the confusion and the destruction and, the unrighteousness in the earth. And he's perplexed. He's thrown off by it. He said, all my bones shake. He said, I am like a drunken man, and like a man whom wine have overcome, because of the Lord and because of the words of his holiness. For someone to see the devastation or the wrath that's coming, he says, it hurts to see it. It's like I'm broken. I'm drunk. I can't keep my balance. It's hard to understand, but this is what we're dealing with in going through this in our everyday life. But we also have to know and understand that there is a foundation that will protect those who stand on it. But if you're going to ignore it, then you receive the reward of the wickedness. But the words of his holiness, it's looking at what the commandments or what the law has already prescribed, even within prophecy, that's going to take place. And just because a number of you say you don't believe it, that doesn't mean it's not going to take place. Number 10, he says, for the land is full of adulterers. He said, for because of swearing, the land mourneth. Basically what we've been talking about, the world is in the hand of the wicked. The world is being led by the unrighteous. Therefore, everything, everybody, we're all suffering. We're all bickering. We're trying to understand why. You got folks thinking they need to build more black banks. They need to get generational wealth, as if that's going to solve the problem. It will not. Our first understanding should be in the correction within our mind. So then, as we build a bank and we establish generational wealth, it's within a firm foundation. But right now, doing these things are mainly leading individuals more into corruption, because you don't understand how to not associate yourself within their institution, so they continue to control you. But if you look at Joshua 1:8, where he tells you what good success is, and you use that as a guiding principle to have resource and to have wealth, because no one says or associates this spirituality with poverty. That's not what we're saying. It's your approach and how you're looking at the foundations of these organizations within this world, as if they're going to give you, some sense of success and or wealth. It's not achievable. Furthermore, it's not sustainable. But I know we all have to do what we have to do in order to maintain, in this day and time, right? So the point, though, is you do not allow for yourself to be governed by the things that they've positioned in this world. All right. He says, for because of swearing the land mourneth. He said, the pleasant places of the wilderness are dried up. This earth that we're living in, there's no place that we can go and it's wholesome. He said, and their course is evil. This is the world we live in right now. And their force is not right. He said, for both prophet and priest are profane. He said, yea, in my house have I found their wickedness. These are the things we're identifying in this day and time. Thank you all for coming, into the live. I say, share the live, repost the live, right? The prophet and the priest are profane. Wickedness is found throughout the earth. Have we identified what wickedness is, or do we just treat it as a trivial thing? And this is what we're being asked to look at and examine, come to understand what these things are, so beyond a shadow of a doubt, we can associate ourselves appropriately with respect to what we serve and what we do. Hosea 4 and number 5, it says, therefore shall thou fall in the day. He said, and the prophet also shall fall with thee in the night. He says, and I will destroy thy mother. Because we have walked away from the commandments, because we have walked away from the law, because we refuse instruction, then we are destroyed. Our families are destroyed. And this has nothing to do, with your religion from Christianity, Catholicism, and Judaism, because all those things are made up. None of those things are real. But what is real is the fact that we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, that we're challenged by understanding these principles that we should use to guide our lives. And we've allowed for ourselves to be guided within a corrupt system. The corrupt system established the religions. A number of you, it's hard for you to see it, but they would not allow for it to exist if it was truly purporting the things that would bring you into a position that you could end the oppression. So they allow for these things to exist because it supports their system of oppression. But are the words that are written associated with them and or their way of being and doing? No. But they've even crossed over into it and have a number of you saying, there's something wrong with these words. No, there's something wrong with you. And the fact that you do not want to govern yourself according to righteousness, and it's more convenient for you to keep aligning yourself with the corruption of this world and thinking at some point it's just going to work itself out. Hebrews 8 and 9, he says, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers, looking at, we're going to have a change within a standard of operation, and it's not going to be in a manner of something that you were once familiar with. He said, the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not. When we decided not to obey righteousness, then we were left to our own devices. But a new covenant is coming to where it's going to be ingrained in our mind, as to where some of you want to think, oh, it's already ingrained in your mind. Okay, cool. Well, then, where's the proof within your understanding, within your doing? See, right now, we know that we have to continue, converting and or changing our way of thinking, and what we use in order to do that. As he said, you meditate on this word, on this law, on these principles, on these standards. You meditate on them day and night. And by doing so, you will come across certain understandings that you latch onto and you say, oh, I get it now. I understand it. And you hold yourself accountable to living by these standards and these principles day by day. That's how it has to happen until the point in time when we're transformed, meaning moving from the terrestrial flesh to the celestial flesh. That's the point in time when ultimately, we have a full comprehension of what righteousness is. All right. He says in Hosea 4:6, he says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So have we identified yet why we are destroyed? Because we don't have a certain degree of knowledge. You can't just make this up to think it can be whatever you want it to be. As today we're asking, what is righteousness? He said, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. There's all kind of knowledge out here. He said, but thou hast rejected knowledge. He said, because thou hast rejected knowledge. But we're out here saying, no, we don't reject knowledge. Look at the world. The world is thriving and it's doing good. And we have this institution and we have this degree and this certificate and that's, no, we have knowledge. We're doing good. It's better than it ever was. But within these writings, it's saying something is wrong with that knowledge, because the earth is continuing to slide into destruction, to collide, to fall into despair. So the knowledge that we have, it's not helping us. He said, because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. And this is where we are right now. We feel rejected. We feel as if we're alone. We understand things aren't right. And he's saying, because we've allowed ourselves to be consumed with the ways of this world, then for that we suffer. He said, I will also reject thee. He said that thou shalt be no priest to me. So these bishops and pastors and preachers that are out here within the religion, they don't have a clue, y'all. If they're out here in the modern daytime religion, they don't have a clue. As hard as it may seem to hear that, and you may say, how can you make such a bold statement? Because if they were of righteousness, they would separate themselves from those things. And they would tell people the truth. But there are no priests, as he said. These are the prophets. These are the priests that do not feed the sheep, that do not feed the people right understanding. He said, thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. Seeing that you don't understand what righteousness is, I can't use you. He says, I will also forget thy children. You all must understand how true these words are and how they still impact us to this very day. As we're being called to distinguish a hard difference between what is appropriate, what is inappropriate. Jeremiah 3:15, He says, and I will give you pastors according to mine heart. This comes back to now understanding what this righteousness is, that we can be cleaned up. And I'm only in this point in time setting the direction to say, look here, this is where it can be understood. This is where, if it's for you, it will open your eyes, because it's not for everybody. It will open your eyes. He says, I will give you pastors according to mine heart. He says, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. Do you think it's going to be the things that you've learned within your time in this world? It will not. It will not. All the things that we've learned from this world will need to be forgotten. Oh, that's just hard for a number of you to understand, because you feel as if you're so intelligent. You have grown to know so much, and not to take anything away from you from what you have. It's just you need to understand none of that is going to benefit you in the world to come. Isaiah 28:8, he says, for all the tables are full of vomit and filthiness. All of them. All the institutions. Everything that we've been given, it's corrupt, you all. Nothing is helping us understand what it means to sustain life. Everything we've been given, it's pushing us quicker to ending life. All the tables are full of vomit and filthiness. He says, so that there is no place clean. And this is what I'm telling you. They've established these institutions of religion. They do not have the understanding of righteousness, or, as he says, knowledge and understanding within these institutions. Accept it, reject it. Number 9, he says, number 8, he says, there's no place clean. Looking at Isaiah 28:8, he said, there's no place clean. Number 9, he says, whom shall he teach knowledge? Whom shall he teach knowledge? So what are we talking about now? The knowledge is going to be associated with the understanding or the elements of righteousness. These are the things that we have to now newly condition our mind to understand what these elements are. Because even if you were looking at it, you may not even understand what you're looking at, listening to, hearing, because we're unfamiliar by design. We have been pushed so far away from these things so that when it does come, it's like bitter. It's like a soursop or something. It's just ultra bitter. It makes your face frown up. You want to spit it out. Whom shall he teach knowledge? Whom shall he make understand doctrine? He's giving us instruction now. That if we want to understand this knowledge, if we want to understand the doctrine, we can't do it like they do it in Sunday church and school and the way the bishops, and we can't do it like the way they do it. They want to give you hermeneutics or some other method that they've come up with. But here's the method for which we should approach understanding righteousness. Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. If we want to understand doctrine, and if we want to be taught knowledge, he says we must do it. In number 10, he said the precept must be upon precept. He says the line must be upon line. He said it must be here a little and there a little. For a number of you, that's a hard concept to get, because for day in and day out, week in and week out, when you hear me speak and dealing within these verses, some of you say, man, you all over the place. You just jumping around and you just jumping from one verse to the other verse. And that's because the institutions of the world today have trained you to not understand how to get knowledge, how to understand doctrine. This thing is not written that you're going to just take it like a textbook within one of the courses that you've learned within one of these institutions, and you're going to walk away with understanding. This thing is written intricately. There's a dynamic coding within these words. And he's telling you how to decipher it. He's saying we have to do a precept upon a precept, a line upon line, here a little and there a little, to then be able to convey the message. A number of you have a problem with the message being conveyed because it doesn't sound like the lies that you hear on a Sunday or from whatever institution that you hold to such high regard. In all of these institutions, there's not one that's not a part of the corruption. There's not one that's not a part of the corruption. These institutions of the world that I'm talking about, okay? As I'm saying, within their religious institutions, within that Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, these things are purposed constructs to continue the deception. Judges 5:11, he says, they that are delivered from the noise of the archers in the places of drawing water. This goes into, once we allow ourselves to stand within the right knowledge, we're rehearsing these righteous acts every day. We're rehearsing the righteous acts that when that time comes that we're given the sense of understanding these things in its totality, we'll be ready. But until then, we have to seek it out. We have to search it. But here it says, they that are delivered from the noise of the archers in the place of the drawing waters. We're in that situation right now to where we're wanting to be delivered from this sickness, from this corruption. He says, there shall they rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord. This is all I'm saying to you as I subtly speak to you about what is righteousness. And it's not for you to put your focus on what is a Jesus and what is a Yahweh and, looking to say, oh, I just confess with my mouth. Before you can get to a point of being associated with a Messiah, to even understand what a Yahweh is, you have to rehearse the righteous acts. We've been led to think and or teach and keep talking as if the more we put emphasis on the Father, the more we put emphasis on the Son. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But we put so much emphasis there that we're not understanding the emphasis that we must have as it pertains to our development. It don't make sense to talk about a Messiah, a father or a son, and you're not developing yourself to be in the standing of such. Hebrews 8 in number 10. He says, for this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days. After those days. Because there's a great tribulation that's coming. But after those days, we're going to receive a new covenant. It doesn't say that we're not in the phase of the new covenant now, but there's a point within the tribulation that we'll reach the climax of what it means to be in the new covenant. So after those days, saith the Lord, I will put my laws in their minds. This is where we receive that celestial flesh. Some of you don't know what I'm talking about. Celestial flesh. Well, what is he saying? And that's because the institutions have done a poor job explaining what these writings are telling us we're going to go through. A number of you consider it to be the age of Aquarius, higher elevation. That's how you talk about it. But within this understanding, it speaks to us leaving this flesh, this earthly flesh, and receiving a celestial flesh. It tells you there are different types of flesh. He says, I will put my laws in their mind. And here's the other thing. The composition of complete knowledge cannot fit within this frame and or body because we're decaying every day. We're diminishing every day. So knowledge as it pertains to righteousness, it does not diminish. So we can't take a full dose of it at this point in time, right? This is why we have to rehearse the righteous acts. But at that time, when we go through the transformation and we receive that celestial flesh, the laws are going to be put in our mind. He says, and write them in their heart. He says, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be my people. In this instance, it's saying here's a people that's committed to doing the work of righteousness. Matthew 24 and 23. If any man say unto you, lo, here is Christ. And this is what I'm getting at as to don't concern yourself with the Jesus, what it looked like, what he looked like. And, don't concern yourself with that figure of a man. This has been a part of the trick. And a number of you feel like I'm saying or I'm speaking against the Messiah. I am not. I'm just telling you as it's being conveyed within these writings, don't allow yourself to be tricked from this man to that man. You think about this. When the Panther Party was created, did they follow Huey P. Newton or did they follow the tenets of the Panther Party? For those who followed Huey P. Newton, they found themselves disappointed at what they later found that he had become. The Panther Party was not ever about the man Huey P. Newton. It was always about the tenets and or the principles that they set up. And if you came and you followed those principles, then whatever Huey P. Newton did, it wouldn't affect you. You would have been able to continue. But for those who was following the man, when the man fell, then they fell right along with him. And we're trying to give the understanding in this point in time, if you say you stand with the Christ, you can't stand with him just because you say, I believe in Jesus, and I'm going to confess it with my mouth. You can't stand with him just because you say, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahuwah. That doesn't make you in line with the representation of righteousness. That just means you know how to repeat something. But here, he says, if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, he said, believe it not. And this is why. Because Your emphasis is not to be like, oh, where is it? Oh, there he is, a thing. You should just run over to him. No, your emphasis should be on you raising yourself to where you can be identified. Don't have to say nothing. You won't have to say, oh, is he here? Is he there? No, he'll find you based on how you rehearse the righteous acts. But let me continue, right? Because the other thing is, it's going to happen so quick. No one's going to have an opportunity to say here or there. But that's what a number of you are looking for, because sad to say, you just want to be entertained. You want to see some magic. You want to see some miracles. You want to see somebody walk on water. Sad to say. A number of you want to hear that Jesus has returned. Oh, and then you want to run over there. Say, yeah. You want to feel like just because you're close to him, that's going to do you some good. Y'all, that's worthless. That's vain. Right? I need to build. We have to build ourselves up to stand within the same manifold and or position that a Christ stands, that we can be associated. If you're not capable of doing that, it's not going to help you at all. Whether you say the Father, whether you say the Son, whether you say this or say that, you could say whatever you want. It's not going to help you. It's for us to understand how to function within the capacity. They're not teaching it. We're on our own to understand these things, and that's what makes us different. Because everybody doesn't have it in them to make these assertions. John 10:9. He says, I am the door. I am the door. So here's the Messiah saying, I am the door. Somebody says, see, it's a man. I understand. But the emphasis is not on the man. The emphasis is on what he's instructing us to do. Because he said he the door. And in order to be with him, we have to go through that door. So that says we have to listen to the instruction. The instructions are laid out within the elements and or the tenets of righteousness. If you can't do those things, it don't make sense for you to be putting the emphasis on the individual. Put the emphasis on what the individual is asking you to achieve and or to do. And that's your greatest point to serve if you're looking to serve. He says, I am the door. He said, by me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved. Do you think he's saying just because you come stand next to him? Just because you look at him, or just because you say, Lord, I believe in you, that will grant you salvation? No. He's saying the man that understands what righteousness is and will do it outside of my presence, will do it because he knows that these are the things that he must rehearse and or do. He said, this is the one that will be saved from the oppression, from the disease, the sickness. This is the one that will be cleaned and used to turn the world around. But a number of you, like I said, you've been trained, we've been trained by or through the education of these institutions, and we can't get away from somebody or wanting to hear somebody say, Christ is returning, and we want to look up where? We want to look over here, where is he? That's a flaw. That's a flaw within our understanding, because here it's being expressed. Just do the work. Just do the work. And for that, then you will be saved. No matter how much you say, I believe in the Son, Yahweh Shabbat, Yahweh, whatever, that's vain. If you never said the name per se, but you stay committed to the functionality of the principle, you'll be found. You will have shown your honor through your understanding of what's required of you. Let me move on. He says, I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. You stick with righteousness, and it will keep you uplifted. This is the thing that we share with one another. He said, the thief come not but to steal. So for those that refuse to understand the need to deal with righteousness, or you want to go about it some other way, again, he's considering you a thief, and you're only here to steal. And this is what those that are ruling the world today, they are thieves. And that's all they're doing. They're stealing and they're taking away. Although they're going to have to give it all back, but it doesn't take away from what's happening right now. He said, the thief come not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. That's the world we're living in today. Nothing but decadence. He says, I am come that they might have life. He says, I am come that they might have life, meaning in the world where unrighteousness is in the lead, those things are destroying us. But if we want to have life, he's saying, divert your attention to the principles, as we do not wrestle with flesh and blood. Divert your attention to the principles of what righteousness is. He said that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. It's not in building black banks and establishing generational wealth within this corrupt system. That's not going to give us life and that we would have it more abundantly. We have our priorities kind of all mixed up or screwed up right now. Again, I'm not saying that you cannot or that you should not know what it means to maintain your livelihood or to have things within this life. It's just saying your approach to those things may keep you bound within a system of corruption to where you don't want to let go because you think you've earned so much or you've made so much. You don't want to lose it. Number 11, he says, I am the good shepherd. What makes you the good shepherd, as he said, for those who come through this door, they will be shepherds. What makes you the good shepherd is the fact that you know how to teach within or speak within or live according to the elements of this thing called righteousness, which seems to be ambiguous. And this is by design, that we have a hard time trying to understand it. And this is why we must commit ourselves to wanting to understand it. You on your own. There's no support out here. within these institutions, within these systems. We're being called to look, to understand, and to hear upon which things we will associate ourselves with to continue within our understanding of what righteousness is. But don't look for it in the world. There's no certificate that you can get that will show how much righteousness you have. He says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd give his life for the sheep. We stand, we live for this righteousness, even in or through all of the corruption. So should they show up at the door and they ask me to then denounce this only that I may live a few more years or days or whatever, it's like, no, then you can have my life now, because I will not mislead my people for whatever accolade or whatever it is that you think you want to give in this day and time. But there are others who they'll drop it in a heartbeat. If it means they can get some money, or if it means they feel like they're saving their life. This, he says, I am the good shepherd. That is in alignment with what I read earlier in Jeremiah 23 and 4. He said, I set up shepherds over them which shall feed them. Matthew 24 and 24. He says, for there shall arise false Christs, false prophets. He said, and shall show great signs and wonders. This is why I'm saying don't put your emphasis on the construct of a man, because he's telling us there will be men who will be very convincing. But the only way that you can truly distinguish, as he said, it will be possible to fool, all of them except for the elect. But, even the elect will have to really scrutinize this thing. But there will come false Christs and false prophets, and they're going to do some great stuff, because that's what a number of you want to see. And you want to be able to say, that's the Messiah. I know the Messiah. I saw the Messiah. You want to be able to talk about it, but this is not something that we just want to be able to talk about. This is something that you really need to see yourself within the rehearsing of the righteous acts, so that you're not concerned with, is he there? Is he here? Is he this? Is he that? Because even if he was, you couldn't make yourself be in association with him, because he said, you didn't choose me, I chose you. This is why we must prepare ourselves so that we can be selected. But false Christs and false prophets, they're going to show great signs and great wonders. And even to this day, we've already seen some of these false prophets, false Christs, and some of these great signs and great wonders, but it don't stop, because we're living in the age or that time of deception. We're coming up out of it now, and we're preparing ourselves even more today. He says, false Christs and false prophets, he says, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. He says, behold, I have told you before. And this is the only warning that I'm putting out as you hear me harping on righteousness. And you hear me telling you, don't be deceived by the image of a man. Focus on the work. Focus on building yourself up, that you're not misguided by a false Christ or a false prophet. But should the true Messiah find you, he will find you because of your dedication to the elements of righteousness, to your wanting and or desiring to have righteousness above all things within your understanding. He said, I told you before. It's like we continue to have these conversations. 1 Corinthians 15 and 49. Thank you all for coming into the live. Share the live, repost the live. 1 Corinthians 15 and 49, he says, as we have borne the image of the earthly, that's this flesh right here. Now I'm taking you into that understanding of that celestial flesh. Is he right here in this is the book that you'll find they talk about the different types of flesh. 1 Corinthians 15, right? So 49, he says, and as we have borne the image of the earthly, this is the image of the earthly, this flesh right here. He said, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. That's the celestial flesh. When we bear the image of the heavenly, that's when the laws will be written in our mind. That's when we will encompass all knowledge, all understanding in its totality. Like, can't from that point, go back, to wickedness, right, wrong. It's like, no, we're set at that point. The image of the heavenly is that terrestrial flesh that's talked about, right? The image of the earthly is corruption. That's this flesh. We deal with a lot of corruption in this flesh as we're in decay every day. The image of the heavenly, that's perfection. That's righteousness. That's immortality. Something, again, some people think, that's a stretch. There's no such thing. And again, we don't know the power that's associated with righteousness. Number 50, he says, now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. That goes back to what I was saying about this flesh right now. It cannot obtain the full understanding of what righteousness is. The totality of the laws cannot be written in our heart at this point. We can't have the full substance of the kingdom of God. This flesh must fall, that we can rise within the flesh, being the celestial flesh. But here, flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Neither do corruption inherit incorruption. It's just saying we're going to have to make that transition within the understanding from the state of how we deal with wickedness, unrighteousness, to transition into the totality of what perfection, immortality, what righteousness truly is. A number of us, like I said, we're just not familiar with these things, but we should be focused on what it means to rehearse the righteous acts. This is the concept of faith, where it says the substance of a thing hoped for, the evidence of a thing not seen. The substance of the thing hoped for is that we can achieve this celestial flesh. The evidence not seen is that we don't have it right now, but we're being led to understand if we rehearse the righteous acts, then we can achieve it. So we have to put in that work. So when we do find ourselves in that position and or place, there will be the evidence of it. But it hadn't happened just yet. He said, behold, in number 51, 1 Corinthians 15:51. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep. Some of us are going to transition. Some of us will be given a celestial flesh. We will not all sleep. He said, we shall be changed. 52, he says, in a moment. And this is why I say you don't have to worry when they say, over here, over there, Christ is here, Christ is there. Because he's telling us right here, nobody's going to have time for that. Because when it happens, it's going to happen in a moment, whether you make the cut or not. And this is why we must rehearse the righteous acts and not be focused on what the image of a man is. Just because we could say Jesus, and just because we could say, you know, I'm in with the Father, I'm in with the Son, or Yahweh, or Yahweh, or whatever. The most important thing is to show that you're rehearsing these righteous acts, that in the moment of the twinkling of an eye, you will find yourself a recipient of the reward. All that other stuff is trivial, you all. It's trivial to the point to be arguing if you're not rehearsing the righteous acts. You want to argue about a name. You want to argue, you want to debate about nothing. How about you put your mind towards what it means to perform the righteous acts? These conversations, they lead to more questions. I get it. Because it's a hard conversation. And for some, this may be your first time hearing it. For others, it go against your traditional understanding. So it brings about more questions. Questions are fine. That's cool. The issue is when you get the answer to the question and you keep coming back with the same question, you don't accept the answer to where you can even allow yourself to meditate on it and or to grow with it, but you want to use your prior knowledge to try and make it as if what's being expressed don't make sense. This is not a debate. You either understand or you don't. Questions are fine. And to provide the answer to the question, it's necessary. But not here to continue repetitively going over it over and over and over again. No, you take the answer and you rest on it and you allow for it to be revealed to you, because that's what it takes. As it says, the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. That's where you're going to get the ultimate answer and understanding for those of you that wrestle with these things. He says, in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, meaning this flesh right here will be no more. And we would receive the celestial flesh. He says, and we shall be changed. He said, for this corruptible must put on incorruption. Some of us are set to be perfect within our form, within our understanding. Some people don't get it. It's not a gift that is given to any and all people that's on the planet. It's for those that have been chosen to rule within a new world order, within the scope of righteousness. And like I said, we're in a world order right now, and it's being ruled within the scope of unrighteousness, corruption, wickedness. And there's a particular people that's at the forefront of that. So the same is happening within the world of righteousness. There's a particular people that will lead and bring and they'll put the earth back on its proper course. Some of you are mad because that's the order of things. But you're not mad about how things are right now. Some of you are upset because it's not going to go your way or the way you think it should go, but that's not, what's important is that we understand what's required of us. That's what we need to be looking at and or dealing with, what's required of us. He says, for this corruptible must put on incorruption, and the mortal must put on immortality. The world will be led in righteousness by those that have been given a gift of immortality. This is hard for a lot of people to understand because within the institutions of religion today, they don't speak in this manner. They don't show or highlight it from or in this direction. They hide these things. Matthew 24 and 26, he says, wherefore, if they shall say unto you, behold, he is in the desert, go forth. Behold, he is in the secret chamber. He said, believe it not. This is coming back to the point. Don't be concerned about the image of the man. Be concerned to whether do you understand what righteousness is. That you can rehearse these righteous acts, that you can uplift yourself, that you can at least give yourself a chance to move into what it means to be perfection, to be an example of perfection. He says, for as the lightning come out of the east and shine even into the west, he says, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. It's like lightning, boom, flash. It's going to be quick. This is why no one's going to be able to tell you over here or over there. He says, for wherever the carcass is, these are the dead flesh, the bodies, the dead minds. He says, there will the eagles be gathered. The eagles are those that are set within living in this corruption, and they lead the world in that manner, and all that are within the dead state, within the dead mind, that's who they devour. That's what they feed off of. But even that is coming to an end. 2 Thessalonians 2:3, he says, let no man deceive you by any means. He says, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first. As he talked about the great tribulation. There are a number of things that we're going to go through in this day and time. There are a number of things that we're going to have to see before we get to that point. He says, there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed. And this is what we're looking. The man of sin will have to continue to be revealed. This is taking place, right now. The man of sin to be revealed, the son of perdition. The son of perdition. So when we look at the case and or the state of the world today, this is who and or what we're dealing with, the son of perdition. He said, who oppose and exalt himself above all that is called God. Above all the things that are centered around righteousness, they're telling you they're the example. They're the thing that you need to listen to. Their law, their policy, their procedures. He said, or that is worship. They want us to serve them within their corrupt standards. He says, so that he as God sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. That's what we have happening right now within the mannerisms of this world today. They've positioned themselves to be the authority. They do not and or will not allow for you to function within the standards of righteousness. You come within those standards, they find a way to penalize you. They find a way to persecute you. They find a way to make an example out of you. Jeremiah 23:12. He says, wherefore their way shall be unto them slippery ways in the darkness, for those who allow themselves to succumb to these things. It's just going to be no footing. You'll never get grounded. You'll forever be falling, continuing to follow them, continuing to listen to them. He says, they shall be driven on and fall therein, for I will bring evil upon them. And this is what we're witnessing right now today. The evil that is upon us because we continue to allow ourselves to be governed, to be guided by these corrupt standards. We do not wrestle with flesh and blood, you all. We are wrestling with the principles. We're not wrestling with these men out here. We're wrestling with the understanding. We're wrestling with the principles. He says, I will bring evil upon them, even the year of their visitation, saith the Lord. Prophecy is written. It's understood that righteousness will usher in and eradicate all that have subscribed to or prescribed to the notions of corruption and unrighteousness. 2 Thessalonians 2:5. He says, remember you not that when I was with you, I told you these things. That's what he said in Matthew 24:5. He says, I have told you these things. It's like we're continuing to have this conversation as it pertains to remembering. What are we being called to remember? Because they're not giving it to us in our daily lives or within the institutions that are around us, that they've established in this world. So we're being called to remember these commandments. We're being called to remember what it means to rehearse the righteous acts. 2 Peter 2:1, he says, I stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance. And this is what this conversation is about, is to stir your mind. The purity of righteousness, to remember these things that we can then stand on these principles. He says that ye may be mindful of the words which were spoken before by the holy prophets. Now, again, the emphasis at this point is not on a particular individual. The emphasis is on the words. We need to remember the words. We need to understand what it means to rehearse the righteous acts. He says, and of the commandments of us, the apostles, for the Lord and Savior. Our job, our duty is to understand the words within righteousness, within the commandments, that we can even be associated with the Lord and a Savior. Outside of that, again, like I said, you're just fooling yourself. You're just entertaining your lust from that standpoint, because you're a hearer of a word, but you're not a doer of a word. 2 Thessalonians 2:6. He says, and now ye know what withhold, that he might be revealed in time. This is why I'm saying to you, study the difference between the behaviors within what is righteous, what is unrighteous. Jeremiah 23:14. He says, I have seen also the prophets of Jerusalem, and horrible thing. Those of us that are meant to lead the world in righteousness, we've fallen. It's a horrible thing, the state and or the condition that we're in right now today. The prophets of peace, it's a horrible thing. He said they commit adultery and walk in lies. The chosen people of God today, we're committing adultery. We're walking in lies. We're engulfed in corruption and wickedness. It's a horrible thing. He said they strengthen also the hands of evildoers. This is what you hear me talking about, how within the way the world is placed today, we're trained to continue running back to the standards of this world. We utilize their religions and their institutions thinking there's some good in those things. There's no good in none of them. He said, all the tables are filled with vomit. Everything is filthy. He says that none do return from his wickedness. How do you return from wickedness unless you're rehearsing righteous acts to understand what you must perform? And you have to be the one to govern yourself to do that. They don't have institutions in place to assist you with these things. If you're looking to deal with what the world has available for you, you have to know within association who you will associate to have your support centers and things in position and or place. But the world is not designed in this day and time to deal with you coming out of wickedness, walking away from all that they have established to keep them in power and or position. He says they are all of them unto me as Sodom, and the inhabitants thereof as Gomorrah. This world is corrupt, you all. If you don't see it, I can't help you. If you think there's something about this world that can or should be salvaged, I can't help you. I don't see it. It all has to go. All of it. 2 Thessalonians 2:7, he said, for the mystery of iniquity do already work, you all. We're engulfed in this corruption. It's in full play right now. He said it do already work. He says, only he who now will let, meaning those of you that continue going along with it, it's because that's what you want to do. But you're being called to distinguish the difference in these things and disassociate yourself from those corrupt standards and rehearse the righteous acts. He says, only he who will let until he be taken out of the way, meaning you're going to live within these corrupt standards until you perish. That's that. That's the only way you're going to stop. You're not interested in stopping. You want to keep finding excuses as to why and or how you should continue on, right? Jeremiah 23:15. He said, therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts concerning the prophets, behold, I will feed them with wormwood. He's saying all of these messengers within the scope of the religions that they've positioned today, right? They're going to be fed within their own destruction. All of the institutions of this world, they have to come down. As much as some of you will cry because you will be out of convenience. He said, behold, I will feed them with wormwood, and make them drink the water of gall. He says, for from the prophets of Jerusalem is profaneness gone forth into all the land. We need to be corrected, you all. And there's only one thing that will give us that correction. It's called righteousness. How do you understand it? We're being guided by corruption and wickedness. How do you understand it? How do you distinguish the difference between these two things? That now you can make a conscious decision. That's what we're being called to do. We're being called to choose life. Number 16, it says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, hearken not unto the words of the prophets that prophesy unto you. These bishops and pastors and ministers, he's saying, don't listen to that. They have all these different denominations and non-denominations. None of that is pertaining to the righteousness upon which will pull us up out of this oppression. He says, they make you vain. He said, don't listen to them. They make you vain. This is what I'm saying. When you go to them and they pull Romans 10, 9 and 10, your belief in Jesus is through confessing with your mouth, and that's what they stand on today. Don't have to do anything else. They make you vain. They speak of a vision of their own heart. It has nothing to do with righteousness and the thing that you need to do in order to be within a position that you can receive salvation, meaning moved out of the way of this destruction, and you will be in a safe place and not dealing with the oppression anymore. He said they speak of the vision of their own heart. All of this Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, all this stuff is made up. I know it hurts for a number of you to hear this because you're fixed on your belief in a Jesus. Again, you all, don't get it twisted. I understand who the Messiah is, what the Messiah is. But the way they've given it to you, it's all wrong. The way they have you looking to go about it, it's all wrong. They do not mean for you to find it. They just mean for you to feel good about it. They're giving you a false sense of hope. But if you truly want it, you have to divert your attention to understanding what it means to rehearse the righteous acts. You have to divert your attention to looking at what it means to break down the elements of righteousness. For some of you, that's a lot of work. This conversation makes you sleepy. It's not entertaining. He said, they speak a vision of their own heart and not, he says, and not out of the mouth of the Lord. They don't speak according to righteousness. 2 Thessalonians 2 and 8. He says, and then shall the wicked be revealed. When you understand righteousness, then the wicked, he's revealed. You can then see the wicked. But if you don't understand righteousness, then you have no way of determining who and or what the wicked is, who that man is based on his activity, his actions. He said, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs of lying wonders. This world is designed to trick your mind. It's designed to make you think something is that ain't. We're being called to distinguish the difference between that thing of righteousness and that thing of unrighteousness, and choose for what side you're going to stand on. Jeremiah 23:17. He said, they say still unto them that despise me, because you have these bishops, pastors, and ministers, they despise righteousness, but yet they wear the clothing and they go to the schools. But when it comes to the true identity of righteousness and the elements associated with it, they despise it. He says, they say still unto them that despise me. The Lord has said, they're still out here telling lies. He said, ye shall have peace. Looking at this world and all of its corruption, they're trying to convince you that there's going to be peace. They're going to be able to bring peace. Trump in the United States and Make America Great Again and the Board of Peace, like they're going to be able to achieve it. These Christian nationalists that's trying to promote it, it's all lies. He says, ye shall have peace. And they shall say unto everyone that walk after the imagination of their own heart, you all, this stuff is made up. It's not according to the standards of righteousness. We don't wrestle with flesh and blood, you all. We're wrestling with the principalities. We have to pay attention to the instrumentation for which these policies and procedures are set up upon, and it's all corruption. You see it, you know it to be true. The imagination of its own heart. They say, no evil shall come upon you. This is where they have those thinking, if you stick with America, you're going to be safe. If you stick within Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, you're going to be safe. Don't worry about keeping no commandments. Just say with your mouth that you believe in Jesus and you covered in the blood, you're going to know evil is going to come upon you. You're going to be safe. These are lies. Because you're not allowing yourself to then follow after what it means. If you're going to confess with your mouth, then you now must move towards rehearsing the act, dealing with the tenets of righteousness. Otherwise, your confession is vain. But they tell you, don't worry. It's enough. It will sustain you. Number 18, he says, for who have stood in the counsel of the Lord, like they're not listening to these conversations centered around righteousness. He says, and have perceived and heard his word. They're not trying to rehearse the righteous acts. He says, who have marked his word and heard it. They're not doing it. They have a totally different doctrine. Isaiah 43:7. He says, thy nakedness shall be uncovered. All of this corruption in the world, uncovered. He says, yea, thy shame will be seen. All of this wickedness, it's going to be known. He says, I will take vengeance. What's going to take vengeance? The elements of righteousness will take vengeance over these things within corruption. You all, this is about principles. This is about how we govern our lives. Choose life. Life is within the principle of righteousness. He says, I will take vengeance. So when he says, I will take vengeance, how? It's by what's written according to the standards of righteousness. He says, and I will not meet you as a man. Okay. So you're mad because I'm telling you not to put your emphasis on a man. Right here, he's saying he's not going to meet this corruption as a man. And you're upset because I'm trying to get you to divert your attention to the point of the elements within righteousness. I will take vengeance. The vengeance is going to take place based on the principle centered around righteousness. He says, as for our Redeemer is within righteousness. He said, the Lord of hosts is his name. This is the body of individuals that stand on these principles to make sure they are enforced. He says, the Holy One of Israel, you all, this goes to the point that the Lord our God is one. He's not the God of one, but the Lord our God is one, meaning we're all going to function within the standards of righteousness. So Jeremiah 23:19, he says, behold, a whirlwind of the Lord is gone forth in a fury. So the whirlwind of the Lord that goes forth in a fury, again, this is all centered within or around the tenets of righteousness. What is going forward? It's that standard that's removing the old standard. He says, even a grievous whirlwind, because for a number of you, it's going to be heartbreaking to have to move out of the state of corruption and or the convenience that you have within this wickedness. He says, it shall fall grievously upon the head of the wicked. What's going to fall grievously upon the head of the wicked but the sentence of righteousness? 2 Thessalonians 2:10, he says, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish. This is what we're talking about. When we ask what is righteousness, it's looking at how we're being deceived in continuing within these corrupt standards. We're being led into a state and or a position to where we're going to be destroyed. He said, because they receive not the love of thy truth. The love of truth is within the principles of righteousness, you all. Right? He said that they might be saved. So are you going to be saved just because you say, I know Jesus, or because you confess with your mouth? You're going to be saved because you understand the principles of truth and you're rehearsing these righteous acts. Are you going to be saved because you're looking for some man to appear? He said, don't fall for that. It's your duty and it's your job to make certain that you understand what's required of you, that you might be saved. Matthew 24:29. He says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, because we're going to have to go through the eradication of this corruption and or this wickedness. So there's going to be tribulation, and we're experiencing and or witnessing it right now. He says, those days shall the sun be darkened and the moon shall not give her light. As we're in this tribulation, and it's getting worse. It's not getting better. All the promises they make you all, don't fall for it. We haven't seen anything just yet. But prepare yourself within righteousness that you will be of a sound mind. He said, the moon shall not give her light and the stars shall fall from heaven, because we're in the state of corruption. He said, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. It's because we're living in a state of decadence. He says, And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. So here we are in this fallen state. We're dealing with this, we're dealing with the tribulation. We're dealing with the hardships. We're dealing with the affliction. And right when you think they've won, only those that have stayed committed to the understanding of righteousness will be worthy. It's a test. Everybody's not going to make it, because a number of you through the pain are going to be trying to find just how can you get along with corruption and or evil that you can just have one more day. And in that notion, you will have failed. He says, then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and with glory. Now, when you see what he's coming with, that power and that glory that's righteousness. That's the thing that's going to govern the earth. That's the thing that's going to remove all the pain and all the suffering that you've endured. That's the thing that puts a seal on the wickedness and or that corruption that we've seen all of our lives and throughout time that we've known, to be the status and or the way in which things are done. That's the power. And that's the glory that's coming because we've heard about it for so long. Finally, this will be the evidence of the thing not seen. In 31, he says, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. There will be those who will then raise up and continue to talk and or promote the standards of righteousness. He says, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds. This is where we're being cleaned and given the instruction. It has started already. But some of you, a number of you, you rejected. His elect from the four winds and from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. A people will be gathered. A people will be salvaged. A people will be selected to move this earth within its proper manner and or place. Just because you don't believe it don't mean it's not so. But you are witnessing these things transpire in real time. He says, I have heard in Jeremiah 23 and 25, I have heard what the prophets say that prophesy lies in my name. Y'all pay attention. Saying, I have a dream. I have a dream. I know. Who said I have a dream? One day, little white boys and little black girls and other. It's a lie. It happened we witnessed it. We saw it. I have heard what the prophets said. They prophesy lies in my name. This was a Christian pastor, minister, prophesying lies in the name of righteousness, that he had a dream one day, little black boys and little white girls and blah, 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 blah. All lies. And we continue to allow ourselves to be governed by these lies because we're dealing with men. We're not allowing ourselves to be associated by the principle. We keep getting tricked by men, looking for men. When we're being called to examine the standards, we don't wrestle with flesh and blood. Our issue is not with this man or that man. Our issue is with understanding these principles. saying, I have a dream. I have a dream. Jeremiah 23:25. He said, how long shall this be in the heart of the prophets that prophesy lies? If you're dealing within Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, these people are prophesying lies in the name of God. It's unfortunate. It's hard for a number of you to hear it because that's all you have to stand on. That's all you know. And you'll say, oh, will it help me change my life? Okay. Well, if you want your life to be changed even more, you now have to move again to stand, to choose life within knowing what righteousness is. He says, how long shall this be in the heart of the prophets that prophesy lies? Yea, they are prophets of the deceit of their own heart. But for a number of us, you can't distinguish the difference because it sounds good to you. It sounds right. But you're not exercising your sense within a higher standard. You're dealing with this based on a carnal level. You've not yet positioned yourself to understand, like, the difference between what righteousness is, what unrighteousness is, and truly committing to what it means to rehearse the righteous acts. So therefore, the I have a dream speech sounds good to you. It's monumental, but here it's written. It's a lie. There stood a false prophet. No matter how much we love and or admire, we have the writing that says that was not true. 2 Thessalonians 2:11. He says, and for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion. I'm pointing out to you. The man said, I had a dream. I had a dream. He was a false prophet. Some of you, you're upset because he allowed himself to be used as an instrument of deception. It is what it is. But for this cause, God will send them a strong delusion because you don't want to hear this truth. You want them to be right and for this to be wrong. But you're being called at this point to change your direction, to choose to understand what it means to rehearse the righteous acts. He says, I will send them a strong delusion that they should believe a lie. He said that they all might be damned who believe not the truth. Did you hear what's being expressed right here? Because you will not distinguish the difference between what the principles are, you're condemning yourself. Because you want to stay within the scope of what society has put in front of you as a dynamic individual. I have a dream. And you want to believe that as having some degree of wholesomeness. He just said, it's a lie. What truth are you going to find within any of that? There is none. It was all in vain, all of it. How has it helped until this day? It has not. You may try to convince yourself otherwise, but guess what? We're still oppressed. We're still being ruled by the wicked. And they continue to press down on the people. He says, should give them a strong delusion. He says that they might be damned who believe not the truth. He said, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Do you even know what it means to have pleasure in unrighteousness? Because for a number of you, I don't know if you consider that that's what it is. You have pleasure in the way of this word. You love the convenience. And for me to talk about righteousness, that's the thing that disturbs your spirit, because I'm telling you that these things within this world and the way that you know it must come to an end. So when you find fault with what I'm explaining to you, then you find pleasure in unrighteousness. He says in Matthew 24 and 35, he said, heaven and earth will pass away. He said, but my word shall not pass away. These things that I'm telling you about righteousness, it ain't going nowhere. But you'll come to see all of that. I got a dream and all this other stuff. That stuff fading away. That stuff is in vain. It will not stand. It will not last. And just not that. It's just the construct upon which this world has been set up and or positioned. He said his words are not going to pass away. He said, but he says, of the day and hour, don't nobody know. This is why we must be diligent to what it means to rehearse the righteous acts. Thank you all for coming into the live. You share the live, repost the live. He says, no man, no. He said, not the angels of heaven. He said, but my Father only. He said, so we should be concerned with understanding, utilizing this time that we have to make the commitment, because we don't know upon which second this thing is going to switch. And if you've not made the decision that you're going to commit yourself to a life within righteousness, you may have boxed and or locked yourself out because you enjoy unrighteousness. You find pleasure in unrighteousness, right? He says, but as it was in the day of Noah were, he says, but as the day of Noah were, he says, so shall he says, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Basically saying people are going to just continue to live their lives like, and nothing is nothing and it's going to be all right. Like you're convinced, as they've told you, no harm is going to come unto you. He said, for as in the day that were before the flood, they were all eating and drinking. Same thing right now. Everybody's having a good time. No cares, no concerns. Like, don't want to hear what you're talking about, man. That's negative. That's pessimistic. That's gloom and doom. He said they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah entered into the ark. And upon that time, at that point, everybody's in chaos and looking and trying to find. It's too late. He says, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. This is what we're up against right now, as you all think it's not going to happen, because they're making you feel they have it all under control. They're telling you to trust in them. And he said, cursed be the man that trusts in man. You better understand these tenets, the tenets of righteousness. He said, and took them all away. He said, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. And this is where we are right now, as we're looking to understand the tenets of righteousness are coming. A number of you, you're not paying attention to that. You're just going on about your everyday life. And then upon the appearance of righteousness, you think you can then shift and change and fall and pray. It's going to be too late. You now have the time within the window and or opportunity of grace to position yourself to commit to the standards of righteousness, to where you're ready to rehearse the righteous acts day in and day out. Acts 5 and 36, he says, for before these days rose up, because going back to how, let's use, I had a dream, how you all want to follow, after that man and this man and that man. He's telling you, do not put your emphasis in the individual. Come to understand the tenets of righteousness. Come to know what it means to rehearse the righteous acts because men are coming, men are going. In this world, in this time, we do not wrestle with flesh and blood. We're wrestling with these principles, you all. And because we suffer with an understanding as to what righteousness is, we continue to allow ourselves to be misled. But here, Acts 5 and 36, these are examples of other men. For those of you that want to put your focus and attention to the discovery of a man before the discovery of the tenets within righteousness. He says, before these days rose up Thaddeus, boasting himself to be somebody. He said, to whom a number of men, about 400, joined themselves, who were slain. He says, and all, as many as obeyed him, were scattered and brought to naught, because they were following after the man, not allowing themselves to understand what righteousness is. He says in 37, after this man rose up Judas of Galilee in the days of the taxing and drew away much people after him. There's always some man coming and drawing people. If you do not allow yourself to understand the principle, you're going to get tricked again. He says, people after him, he said, he also perished. And all, even as many as obeyed him, were dispersed. Same thing with the Panther Party. Same thing with the civil rights movement and all these other organizations. Once those individuals were taken out, y'all ran like roaches. Because you were not living according to any principle. You were living to be associated with some man. And I'm just trying to say to you at this point in time, do not let that be your focus as you're trying to find a Messiah. As you want to talk about Yahweh Shai, Jesus. Okay. Find that within knowing what the principle is, because he told you there will be false Yahweh Shais to come, false Jesus to come, false prophets to come. How will you know the difference? Another one will come saying, I had a dream. And what you gonna do? If you're not raising yourself to understand what it means to rehearse the righteous acts, you're gonna get tricked again. Let me jump down to number 39. He said, but if it be of God, if you're following the standard that deals within rehearsing the righteous acts, he says, you can't overthrow it. So all of these things that have come up until this point, they were not of God. They all failed. All of these religious institutions in the world today, they're not of God. It's hard to hear, but if we're going to align ourselves with what's written right here, we can understand. Those things do not work. They have not helped us to overcome the oppression. He said, but if it be of God, you cannot overthrow it. He said, least happily you be found even to fight against God. When righteousness comes in, there will be those that will stand on the side of evil and corruption, and they will use their effort to try and prevent the ways of righteousness, but it will be to their own demise. John 10:7. He says, then said Jesus unto them again, verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. Righteousness is the way into the minds of the men and women selected to live within righteousness. He says, I am the door of the sheep. And all that ever came before me were thieves and robbers. He's coming back to the point that if you are not going to allow yourself to function within the principles of righteousness and you want to do it some other way, you're a thief and you're a robber. Why can you not just allow yourself to see the principles or the standards of righteousness? That you can go through that door. There's no other way, as they're trying to tell you. Oh, there are many ways. There are many ways to achieve it. The way to achieve it is by training yourself to understand these principles. He says, all that ever came before me are thieves and robbers. He says, but the sheep did not hear them. He's saying, when you're in tune to righteousness, those tenets and those principles, when somebody get to shouting, I had a dream, you ain't paying that no mind. When somebody get to saying, Christ is over here, Jesus is over there, Yahweh Shah has returned, you ain't paying that stuff no mind. Because you already understand within the tenets of righteousness how it will transpire. So you don't hear all these other voices and these distractions that are out here, but it takes a hard focus in order to remain in that fold and to deal with this understanding. Zechariah 2:7, he said, deliver thyself, O Zion, deliver yourself. Because for some reason you think somebody else is going to do it for you. They got you thinking Yahweh Shah gonna come and do it for you. Jesus gonna come and do it for you. Some other man is gonna come and do it for you. But let's understand what righteousness is. Because with righteousness, you first have to deliver yourself. A way has been made in order for us to benefit from it. But you have to do it. He says, deliver thyself, O Zion. What are you delivering yourself from? These principles, these standards, these behaviors. Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwell with the daughter of Babylon. We're in America. We're surrounded by all of the corruption. He's saying, understand what righteousness is and separate yourself from the ways of the world. Deliver yourself. Ezekiel 14:14, he says, though these three men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, were in it, talking about the elements of the corruption. He said they should deliver but their own souls by their righteousness, saith the Lord God. So when he tell you, deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon, or to deliver yourself, he's saying, by righteousness. And that's all I'm looking to divert your attention and or understanding to is, let's turn our attention to know, what is this thing called righteousness? That we can use this to deliver our soul. So that when a Messiah returns, we're available. Because if we don't do this work, if we don't do this work and the Messiah returns, you're going to be on the wrong side. You're just going to be on the wrong side. But with Noah, Daniel, and Job, they were in it. They were in the corruption. They were in the evil world. The way they delivered their souls were by understanding righteousness. Each one of them had to do it. Just like each one of us, we're being called to do it. Revelations, and I'm coming down to the end, you all. Doing good time today. I'm coming down to the end. Revelations 17 and 5. He says, and upon the forehead was the name written, Mystery Babylon the Great. Looking at where he said in Zechariah 2:7, he said, deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwell with the daughter of Babylon. Revelation 17 and 5. He says, on the forehead was the name written, Mystery Babylon the Great. That's this corrupt world that we live in today, more specifically, America. He says, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. This place, they are controlling within the world of corruption and or wickedness today. They're responsible. These Europeans, these people, they're the heads of the evil. Whether you understand it or not, it don't take away from what is. Revelations 18 and 4. He said, I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people. How often do you hear me saying this? The question is, are you that people? Come out of her, my people. And the way we come out is remembering the same as Noah, Daniel, and Job. They had to deliver their souls by standing on righteousness. Same thing applies to us to this day. But he said, come out of her, my people, that you be partakers, that you be not partakers of her sins. Don't be a part of this corruption. He says, and that you receive not of her plagues. We're looking for salvation. We want to be saved. We want to not deal with the affliction. Then we must divert our attention to understanding the elements of righteousness, right? 2 Corinthians 6 and 17. He says, wherefore come out from among them and be ye separate. See, a number of you have a problem at this point in time trying to separate yourself from this evil because you enjoy, you find pleasure in unrighteousness. And he said, for that you will receive the reward of the wicked. And all I'm telling you is use this time to fix your mind on getting yourself to understand what is righteousness. Nobody can do it for you, you all. There's no magic to this thing. He just said with Noah, Daniel, and Job, they had to deal with the point of understanding what righteousness is, right? They had to deal with understanding that no different than we have to deal with understanding it, right? He says, wherefore come out from among them and be ye separate. In John 10:25, it says right here, Jesus answered them, I told you, and ye believe not. Same thing we're dealing right now. I'm explaining to you all, and a number of you, you don't get it. You don't believe it. You want to debate and you want to argue. You want to go into semantics and you want to say his name ain't Jesus and that's Greek and Hebrew and J, and you want to get into all these other things that have nothing to do with what it means to deliver your soul. Our attention, our energy, our interest, and our efforts should be on let's define what righteousness is, that we can use that to salvage our soul, that we can use that to elevate and protect our mind, right? He said, I told you, and you believe not. He says, the works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness of me. So these works that we're doing, even in understanding righteousness, these are the things that we should be focused on. He said, but you believe not because you're not of my sheep. He said, as I said unto you, the sheep will hear the call to righteousness. They will not follow another one. But you don't believe it. You don't understand it because that's not you. And it's okay. It's cool. It's understandable. But for those of you that do understand and you realize you need to divert your attention and understanding to what it means to be associated with righteousness, then this right here is reaching you to the point where you know you have to divert your attention to understanding righteousness. And yes, righteousness, 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 like the commandments, like the law. These are the principles. As again, we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, you all. We're trying to understand these correct principles. And they've hidden these things and made it difficult for us to get a strong footing. So we have to fight to make certain that we understand. He said, you don't believe because you're not my sheep. Ephesians 1:4, he said, according as he have chosen us in him before the foundation of the world. See, everybody's not a part, of this. He said that we should be holy and without blame before him in love. To be before him means we're dealing in the standards of righteousness. That's the only way that we can be before him. That's the only way that we can usher in the sense of what the government of the world is going to be to turn this thing around. In John 10:27, he says, my sheep hear my voice. So if you're of the Messiah, if you're of this work, then you will hear the call to righteousness. He says, my sheep hear my voice. He says, and I know them. See, this goes back to the part, you don't have to be trying to look for a man or be associated with a man. He said, because he know who his sheep are. He know who his people are. And he know because you will be identified with respect to how you deal with the principles of righteousness. If you're not doing it, you can forget it. You can say Yahweh Shah all day. You can say the Father, the Son, and I believe you can say it all day. But if you're not being distinguished within the fact that you've separated your mind from the principles of corruption into understanding what this righteousness is, that you can salvage your soul, you're not even visible. He says, my sheep hear my voice. He says, and I know them. Based on what he said in Ephesians 1:4, according as he have chosen us in him before the foundation of the world. He says, I know them. He says, and they follow me. Let's deal with that part right there. They follow me. Do you think that means you're just standing next to a man and when he moves, you move? That's not what it means to follow him, or as he say, and they follow me. When he says, and they follow me, he's saying, they've heard my instruction. They know what righteousness is, and they're doing that. That's how you follow in line with righteousness. You have to do that. That's how, if you say you're standing with the Messiah, then you have to follow him based on dealing with the tenets of righteousness. If you're not doing that, then what are you following but the standards of corruption? And for that reason, you're not visible to him, but to be destroyed. Malachi, we got four more verses after this, you all. Malachi 3:17. He says, and they shall be mine. Who is he talking about? He's talking about everybody in the world? No. There's a select group of people. He says, and they shall be mine. The ones that he said in Ephesians 1:4 that he chose before the foundation of the world. He said, and they shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts. Right? He said, in that day when I make up my jewels. He says, and I will spare them. These are those that have committed themselves to understanding what is this thing of righteousness. This is who he's going to spare. He said, I will spare them as a man spare his own son that serve him. Come on, y'all. He said, his son that serve him. How do you serve him other than you're doing a particular thing? And the particular thing that we're being asked to do, and that is to serve within righteousness. That's how we are identified. John 17:9. He says, I pray for them. I pray not for the world. He's praying for those of the fold that he chose before the foundation of the world. He says, I pray for them. I pray not for the world. He said, but for them which thou hast given me. Everybody is not given. So if you understand that you're of that fold, you need to protect your investment at this point in time and know what it means to divert your attention now to the hard search of finding righteousness and the elements of that, and meditating on this word day and night, that it can then reveal itself to you what's to be known. He says, for they are thine. He says, and number 10, he says, and all mine are thine. He says, and thine are mine. He says, and I am glorified in them. John 15:16. He said, you have not chosen me, but I've chosen you, as I've expressed. I've expressed it. If you've not already been selected for this, you can't break your way into it. That's what he said. Those others that have come, they're thieves and they're robbers. But if this is for you, he says, you have not chosen me, but I have chosen you. So it's for us to turn our attention to that concept of righteousness, that we can be in the selection. But there are some that no matter what you do, you're not of that fold. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So you can be concerned within yourself to say, well, if it ain't for me, if I ain't gonna get, then I'm gonna do it. Then that right there explains who you are. That shows that you find pleasure in unrighteousness, because those that are committed to this thing, it's like, no, I don't, I'm sticking with this. No matter how much more you oppress me and how much more I'm afflicted, I'm sticking to these tenets and or this understanding within righteousness. Why? Because that's what I'm called to do, right? In John 28, he says, you have not chosen me, but I've chosen you and ordained you. In John 10:28, he says, and I give unto them eternal life for following within the standards of righteousness, you all. This is where we get eternal life. This is where we transform from the terrestrial flesh to the celestial flesh. Okay. He says, and they shall never perish. This is talking about immortality. We went over that earlier, right? He says, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. So once we're grounded within that sense and or that state, I know for some this sounds like a fairy tale, like you're not even going to waste your time. And it's okay. Don't. Because this is not about you. This doesn't apply, to you. Okay. And the last verse, Matthew 19:17, he says, if thou wilt enter into life, you always say, keep the commandments. It's just that simple. So to find righteousness, we have to find the commandments, and it goes beyond 10 commandments. But as we're reading these verses and we're dealing with precept upon precept, the concept of commandments and the concept of righteousness, it will blossom. It will open up like a flower. It will then start to show you the nuances that you will need to deal with your molecular structure. As it said, you like Noah, Daniel, and Job, you're going to have to use these elements of righteousness to save yourself. And when you get into it, it will speak to you. It will show you these things that you need to know, but you can't just make it up out of your head. You have to understand what these principles are, you all. We do not wrestle with flesh and blood. We wrestle with these principles. If you will enter into life, keep the commandments, you all. And with that, I say shalom. And for you all to remember, the Lord our God is one. Thank you all for coming, into the live. And the videos are posted on the channel. If you want to find the channel, if you missed something off of this one, you can watch. You can go to the channel. On this page right here, under where it says Saturday at 11 o'clock, click that link. You click that link, it'll take you to the channel. You can subscribe to it. You can catch last week's conversation where we talked about everlasting, what was it? Everlasting life? Oh, no, life after death. That's what it was. We had a dynamic conversation about life after death. If you missed it, you need to go check that out as we continue the series, Prophecy 2026. Thank you all for coming. Shalom. Enjoy the rest of the Sabbath.